Welcome to Dragons,
Unicorns,
and Other Creative Creatures.
This is
Dr. Kevin.
And I am
Rona Gofstein.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am that I am.
And what I am needs no excuses.
Yep. We could sing that whole song, but we won't.
I could sing that whole musical.
I don't think we have the copyright.
Probably not.
I think, but we were under the 30 seconds. Yeah, you know, you got to count those things.
You do. It's very important. Copyright's important. I believe in it. You should see what's going through the romance community right now. Somebody tried to copyright a word that's frequently used. I'm not going to say it on public television, but and we're in court over the fact that she copyrighted a word. And the way it's used in the specific font it's being used in on the cover of some of her books. So. Don't get me wrong, I believe very much in copyright. I believe in protecting artists, obviously. We've discussed this on a couple of occasions, but this is... Ooh.
Well, I believe in protection, too. I think the world is overpopulated, so...
On that happy note.
On that happy note. So we are, as you may have seen or not seen, this may be the first show that you're kind of tuning in to. We are taping this in the month of June. We never know whether we're going to actually show in June or show in July.
It's true. And if you're finding us on YouTube, goodness only knows what month it is.
But this is one of our June shows. And in all of our June shows, first of all, we are celebrating the fact that it is Pride Month.
Yes.
See?
Totally.
There's my unicorn. And that is describing his horn, by the way.
Oh, just the totally straight horn. Yeah.
Yes. Well, what did you think it meant?
I decided not to think. Seemed preferable in this situation.
Oh my. So anyways, we're starting all of these shows with a quote, which we sometimes do, sometimes don't. We have an inconsistency.
Consistently inconsistent.
Well, yes. So we're going to start with a quote, and then I'm going to make an announcement in case you get to this show before June 30th, get to see it. Be careful who you hate. It could be someone you love.
That's a very, very interesting quote. I have a friend whose father has, issues around the LGBTQ, and he has no idea that three of his grandchildren fall into that alphabet.
Yep. I was speaking with somebody recently. I was speaking with a survivor, and I was speaking with somebody who had passed on to the other side, because we don't talk a lot in this show that I do mediumship. That's more the Web of Light show, but I talk to dead people. Sometimes they're no more interesting than live people. Sometimes they're no more interesting dead than they were live.
Yeah,
but
well,
that's beside the point.
sadly, it doesn't seem to fix things.
Yeah, dead does not necessarily give you a personality. But anyways, but I was doing some grief counseling, actually, between a survivor and a dead person. And one of the things is that the guy ended up passively taking his own life, but took his own life at a young age, in his 20s and stuff like this, and was really clear that his parents' hatred of homosexuals is what drove it to him, because he turned to drugs instead of the truth to deal with it.
Which passively did that. Yeah, the death in Laramie that time, the woman who lost her son completely had a change of heart and a change of life because of what she lost. So let's not let it get to that point, boys and girls. Yeah.
So before you spew hate in the name of a loving God, oh my, hypocritism at its best.
Sadly.
Then be careful who may be listening and how it may impact your life. So anyways, the big announcement that I want to make sure is that here in Nashua, New Hampshire, we are taping this in Hudson, but Hudson is
one step away.
It shares a border. Woo, baby!
And it's not a straight border.
No, it curves all over the place. Yes, it has. It's got a very Marilyn Monroe type. Nashua Pride Festival, the first annual Nashua Pride Festival, Saturday, June 30th. Nashua Pride Festival is a free celebration of diversity, acceptance, music, and fun, focused on promoting equality and inclusion of all people. So from June 30th, from 2 to 5, they're going to have a number of different events. I'm going to go over those just real quickly, and then we will get to introducing today's guest. The Pride Parade starts at 2 o'clock on Maple Street and goes all the way to Main Street and then ends at French Park.
It's not straight either.
And then at 2:45, the mayor and other speakers. I think they're being a little ambitious. I suspect it's going to be well enough attended that I don't know that 45 minutes is going to actually.
That's a short parade to me,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
You know, of course, then I did the parades in Carousel when I was down there
Well,
for a
you got
festival.
spoiled.
Yeah, and they were like 5,
Days.
6 hours long.
They
from
were
beginning to
preparing
end.
for those for quite some time, and I mean, they start like a year in advance on those. So.
Yes. So 2:45, mayor and other speakers. At 3 o'clock, the Doggy Drag Show.
This kills me.
Bring
I
your
love it.
dog in its favorite drag costume.
Yes. Bring your little, wiener dog, RuPaul.
And at 3:30, performances by Transposition and New Hampshire Gay Men's Chorus. And then at 4 o'clock is the main drag show.
There you go.
So that's all going on June 30th here in Nashua, New Hampshire. It's the first one. It's the first annual.
Beginning of a new tradition for Nashua.
Absolutely.
wonderful.
So now we're going to move to, from raising up our vibration into the angelic realm to snorting aerosol. Would you like to introduce today's
No,
guest?
you introduced it. Snorting aerosol.
Michael Rich is a multimedia artiste. You like it?
I do. I like the artiste.
Who specializes in aerosol art. Which is the latest version of sniffing glue. Anyways, he started spray painting at the age of 11. Was thrown in jail at 12
What?
for 3 years for doing graffiti. What? Isn't that what it says? Oh, I'm sorry. At age 11 and painted his first commissioned mural at age 14.
That's awesome.
Yeah, hey, I think that's fabulous.
It is.
He has continued his work as an independent artist and has been spray painting for over 33 years, which makes him what, 44? 33 and 11? Unless he does the 3, anyways.
New math.
Makes him 29 if it's the new math. Besides the murals he is most known for, he also does sign painting, portraiture, logo design, cartoon design, and landscape painting. He uses the mediums of spray paint, acrylic, sign paint, pen and ink, marker, colored pencil, and blood.
What?
His work can be seen through, well, I'm sure he's cut himself every now and then. He has to, doing all this stuff. Are you kidding?
He's good.
He has work seen throughout Portland, as well as various points across Maine and New England. Mike, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for
He's
having
like,
me.
why on earth did I send that bio even? No, thank you for joining us.
That was an awesome introduction.
He's going to go
See,
fix
he
that.
liked it. No, he liked it. He
love
was
it.
smiling.
I think that's so amazing. First commission mural at 14. Somebody was smart enough to go, this is art. This deserves acknowledgement and a check. And
It was a friend's bedroom, and
I don't care.
His mom paid me. So.
I think that's great. Go, Mom.
Doesn't make it any less.
No,
It's like
it doesn't.
$20 and a bag of Doritos or something.
Hey,
like that.
at 14, that's the going rate.
Well, and it's been long enough that the IRS can't go after you because you didn't report the income, so
Yeah.
you're safe.
It can only go 7 years back.
That's right. So you're clear on. You can keep the Doritos.
Yeah. So what was that for? I'm curious. So what did you paint on his wall?
I painted his name, and then in the foreground along the bottom of the wall, I painted a graveyard, and then one of the gravestones was the chief of police's name or something. So, chief of Portland Police Chief.
Who was alive and well, and what was the story behind that?
You were the one that mentioned the juvenile delinquency.
My friend was even more of a delinquent than I was, so that was per his request.
I love it though. You do. You think of graffiti art as being, of spray paint art as being graffiti art, as being inappropriate or illegal or subversive or whatever. And yes, it's got that, and it's important that it does. But it is also beauty. I mean, there's cities here and across the country that are commissioning this for its joy and its size and its color and its beauty.
But it still has to stay delinquent in order for it to be fascinating and stand apart from everything else.
Let's
gotta be
bring
delinquent.
up
I love
the piece that we have on our screen right now. Just look at it.
Inspire.
Is that on a canvas or is that actually on a wall?
This is actually on a few 4-foot by 8-foot panels of faux brick that Young's Furniture had me paint that off-site and then put that. That's actually a section of their storeroom, furniture showroom or whatever.
That's great, especially because they've got these, these sort of marshmallowy white pieces of furniture, which look wonderfully comfortable, but white. I mean, they're bland. They're, it's a very simple color, and then you add this, ba-boom, this huge Inspire, and I love it.
They loved it, and then after that, they had me paint a huge wall in their showroom, faux marble, which was like, it was like 10 feet tall by 30 feet long, and I just painted the whole wall to look like one big slab of marble.
That's great. So it's a combination. You can do it very utilitarian, making it just the faux and the painting, because you can do all sorts of things with that. You make things look patinaed and stuff. But then this is more adding art as opposed to just.
One of the things I like about that, well,
you
besides
see
the fact that from the artiste in myself, of course, the colors in there pick up the rug and the little,
Yes.
and so it does all of the accent pieces. But by having it on the faux brick in panels, then I could actually like say, hey, because like your friend's bedroom at some point got painted over, I'm sure. I
Right.
don't think it's probably still there.
No.
It's
And
transient, art.
it's transient art, and some of the beautiful graffiti that I've seen, and I used to live in Portland, and they have a whole graffiti walkway that goes down, or they used to, by...
Still do, yeah.
They still do, yeah. I haven't been there for years, because I haven't lived in Portland for years, but I was there when they did that Back Bay Cove extension piece where you could walk by it, and it's great, but then somebody who, decides they're going to do something at midnight over it because they don't maybe feel like they
Yeah.
have the talent to do something like we're seeing on the screen, or they trash it, or there's a change in the wind and somebody decides it all needs to be painted over or whatever, and then that art's lost unless you take pictures of it.
Yeah.
So I like the idea that you can actually have something that, like with all of the brick, with that being the faux brick, that's something that's transportable. I mean, that's something that I could decide that I wanted to have in my new house,
Yeah.
Right.
But I could take it when I left if I wanted to. So is there more movement towards people wanting to have more permanency with graffiti art, or is it just me and my cancer nature?
I actually find a lot of people will hire me just to do actual walls, and sometimes I'll even suggest maybe doing it on panels. That way, if they do plan on moving or something, they can still have the artwork.
Yeah,
but
I would never want to leave it behind, but.
most people don't even really seem to, they don't mind and just have me paint directly on a wall, and it's not like they're going to take the brick wall with them when they leave or something. So.
But you do, thank goodness you have the pictures, but yeah, that's interesting. I would rather have it take a transportable. I want to keep it.
Yeah, they're paying for it. I'm used to my art being really, what is the word, ephemeral or?
Yeah, it's
Transient.
There's something that's zen about it. There is certain art that just doesn't and is not intended to last, like cake decorating or makeup or certain things, or even clothing. You wear it, things happen to it. So, not all art isn't intended to be permanent. It's intended to be there for that moment and that time and that inspiration, which is.
Now, on that particular piece that you did they ask you to do the word inspire, or did they just tell you to do what you wanted?
They asked me to do the word inspire, and then I just picked some colors that I thought went well together, and then they put it in their showroom where they felt like it kind of went with what they were doing. They just wanted the urban, they wanted a little section of, they showed me examples of another furniture store that had used graffiti, but it was really ugly kind of graffiti. I was like,
I can do better than that.
not to, sound like I'm the best on earth, but I was like, oh, well, I'll paint a word and it'll look great. I showed them some examples of my work, and they're like, okay, great, go for it.
So it has that edgy urban look while still being not something that got spray painted as the subway went by.
Right.
Yeah. So now, when did you actually, have you kept photographs of most of your work along the way, or is that something that didn't occur to you until well into your process?
Yeah, I some photos of my work, but when I was a teenager, it was the last thing on my mind. I think I have a couple photos from that era, but for the amount of painting I was doing, it was just hard enough to get paint. I mean, no one would sell me paint because I wasn't 18, and so.
You have to be 18 to paint? Or is that just spray paint?
Yeah, well, spray paint. I mean, and I wanted to paint so bad, I was forced to steal it to go and spray paint. So,
It was a juvenile delinquent, you're right.
you know, I'm no thief, but I did
Yeah, it's
steal paint to, paint.
it's got it has its roots in that, and you certainly followed along, which is there's something about that. I don't know.
I think it's because of the whole snorting paint that can happen.
It's funny. I never thought about it, but you're right. Even in the big craft stores, the spray paint is behind. It's locked. You have to ask somebody to come get it for you.
Yeah, well, it's like just part of the stigma or / mystique of the art that draws people to it or keeps them away. It's kind of why I love it.
Now, were there other ways at which your creative side was playing out at that time, or was it all just focused on the spray art?
I've always been creative.
So what else do you do? I mean, we're going to see more of your work, but I'm just curious. We always like to find out.
I like to write words in the sand at the beach with a stick. And, I don't know. It's just how I live. But yeah, I do love making art. Ever since I was like 3 years old, my mother said I was always drawing, and I was drawn to Godzilla. I would always paint pictures of Godzilla and cartoons. I always loved comics.
Have you ever thought about creating your own comic book?
Yeah. I'm in the process of creating one with my son, who's 12. He's writing it, and I'm illustrating it. So.
Oh, that's awesome. We're back to parent-child collaborations. We've had another guest recently who did that too with her kids, because they were, they're like, "What do you mean you're making a book?" It's one thing when she made dinners, but mom having to need time to make a book seemed really weird, and so they collabed, and now that's so cool.
And I'm actually working on another one too with a nonprofit I work with, Dunk the Junk. It's educates children on overconsumption of sugary drinks and foods.
There you go. Sometimes the best way to reach people with a message is through fiction, not nonfiction. Not through a commercial, and not through a documentary, and not through a program, but through something fun, something engaging, something animated, and then the message. Something
other than wah, 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 wah.
Like all the adults in Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Well, it's the company. These companies are using the same tactics to sell their goods. So.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's always been Tony the Tiger and the Toucan Sam. The cereals.
Joe Camel and Spuds MacKenzie.
Oh yeah, to sell beer and cigarettes. Yeah, the cuter, the fun. That's true. Let's stick to getting them to eat healthy. It's a better use of our little less delinquent.
Well, you need to let us know when the comic book is done, finished, whatever, because then we need to have you and your son come back on the show
Definitely.
And talk about this process.
That would be a blast. Have him here too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But obviously it sounds like the son is following in Dad's footsteps as an artist.
Yeah.
Of some kind, or creative.
He loves writing. He even told me that he wants to write comics and not so much illustrate them. So.
Well, someone's got to do the dialogue and the story arc and stuff.
Right.
So yeah, that's terrific.
Absolutely. What was it about this? Do you think that created your love affair with the aerosol can?
I was always a really high energy kid, and I was always like the funny guy in class, and I was always getting in trouble in school for drawing during class. And then, I don't know, graffiti was just kind of like this way for me to do art where everyone would see it, and I would also have this kind of attitude towards it where it was just kind of, it was cool to me to see art where it didn't belong, or to wonder like, whoa, who did this? Like, the book Subway Art and the documentary Style Wars really got me into it when they documented like the graffiti on the subways of New York and stuff. I just thought it was fascinating to see such cool artwork in other than a gallery or a museum setting right on the street. And
Accessible art.
yeah.
Intended for everybody to see, not if you had the money and if you were, at the museum.
And there was a rush to create it and get away with it.
So would you say, was there something at some point that kind of sparked you as a rebel, or were you just born a rebel?
I was probably born a rebel, I would say. I just always had that in me. But not in a bad way, not to do harm to anyone, just to feel like there's some sort of intrinsic good in what I was doing, but be outside of the law at the same time and, be Robin Hood.
Well, there's a difference between being that you can be a rebel and not necessarily have to be outside of the law, but just be outside of the social mores, the limitations. You often hear outside the box. There's a lot of ways to be rebels that don't necessarily have to be breaking the law. And I don't say that from a judgment perspective.
Although, yeah, I mean, it's amazing because people will say, well, no, it has to be here and it has to be there. And
no, because it's, part of the reason I bring this up, because I also was born a rebel. But a lot of my rebellion was pushing against authority figures and doing stuff, but I didn't necessarily have to break the law to do it. So I don't want to send the message out there that if you're rebellious, you don't count as rebellious unless you've broken a law. I'm not judging if you decide to do spray art on a wall, and yes, if you get caught, there'll be a fine, and you are taking there's an action and consequences. But there are plenty of ways to be rebel where you're just pushing the boundaries and you're still a rebel.
And there may still be consequences.
Oh, well, there are always consequences. There are always consequences, but they may not end up with you in handcuffs. And now, if you're into handcuffs, that you may like that, but I don't know.
That was
So professionally, did you ever wear handcuffs? We don't want to know about the private side. No.
Not if I can help it.
There you go. It's hard to spray paint when you're handcuffed. Can we look at a picture?
Let's look at a couple more pictures.
Let's show these to our audience. Yeah.
Lots of colors, lots of colors.
So now what are...
When we was famous.
When we was famous.
That's actually for a book cover by Holtz Publishing in Manhattan on Fifth Avenue. They contacted me out of the blue and asked me to design a cover of this book called When We Was Famous. And it was a year-long process. I really worked with them throughout the year until they actually landed on this version that I did, and then put it to print.
That's so cool.
I wish I'd have remembered I could have brought the book in, but...
I'm going to have to go look up the book. Everybody go look up the book When We Was Famous.
When we was famous.
Because Mike is famous.
Semi.
Yeah, well, I can see, though, that your computer's spell check wasn't working. No. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? Tell us the story behind that.
This is, I had a group show with some friends of mine called Learn Our Rich History during First Friday Art Walk downtown Portland about, I want to say 7 years ago. And we did one letter, each letter of the alphabet on a different canvas. And these canvases were 36 by 36 inches. So this is the letter T that I did for that art show.
So all the letters were in different styles? And
Yeah, we had about 9 different artists contributing canvases to the show. And so, yeah, and all different styles and fonts and in the infinite possibilities of colors and font choices.
Yeah, which is great, because that's what
styles.
you want kids, anybody who's being... Was that done for, I'm guessing it was done for, was it for a younger audience or just?
No.
necessarily? Oh, no,
we
you said
had
it was...
art collectors of all ages there. I think we had over 1,000 people come into that art show in the 3 hours we had it up and running, and almost sold out the show. There was about 60 canvases in the show. So it went really well.
That is terrific.
Yeah.
And to see, I mean, we're just seeing the one letter, but to know, everybody gets exposed to a different style and discover what they like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this one is just one of my favorites because there's just so many choices that you can make with color and style and spray paint, because you can do a fine line and a huge line and a fuzzy line, and it's like having every art, when you really know how to spray paint, it's like having every tool in the artist's toolbox in one can. So
You was to say, I always think I was kind of doing one style, but one type of line, but obviously not.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the other interesting, thing is that you have the ability to decide on the styling and, for lack of a better word, like the font type
Right.
Right.
that you can do that. Because I know one of the things I will sometimes, be doing journaling or just writing stuff, and I'll use 5 or 6 different colored pens, and and I'll just be like my stuff, it kind of gets an artistic kind of a color flow to it, and geometrics in it just as part of the writing. But I will find that I have 10 different ways I can make a tea, and each one seems to gravitate more to, was it more of an abstract thought? Was it more of an analytic thought? Is it more a commentary? Is it a creative? Am I using more of a fine line pen, or did I grab something like a Sharpie? And so stuff like this. And so one of the things about the letters is, I'm assuming that you got to create the letter the way you wanted as well, not just the colors of it,
Right.
but the design.
Yeah.
Because you could have there's 9 other ways you could have done that tea and spray painted it, and it would have had a different
Feel.
feel, different
Yeah.
energy.
900 million
Different ways.
Yeah, really,
Yeah,
it's infinite.
really,
I love the spots that almost make it look shiny, like the
It's-
little
it's
pops of light.
Yeah, it's such a versatile art medium. I think it's why I kind of consider myself a versatile artist all through my adventures with spray paint. Portraits and landscapes and lettering and cartooning and everything you can do with spray paint. And there's so many different nozzles, and it's like
There's no way to get bored.
there's no way to get bored with it.
Yeah.
It seems like a lifetime is barely just scratching the surface of what I would like to do with the
That's
paint.
amazing.
So let me ask you, from the perspective of your 12-year-old, are you still cool?
Yeah, somewhat still, yeah.
At some point there'll be some kind of pushback, but,
Probably.
Right.
That's par for the course.
where dad has to become uncool at some moment, but it can come and go quickly.
He's got his work cut out for him, I tell you that.
Describe these, so you did one on a car, and then the other one is I take it that's supposed to be a representation of the guy that's in front of it.
Yeah, as a child, that's rapper Killer Mike out of Atlanta. I've always been a fan of his music, and he had agreed to help us educate children with Dunk the Junk at an elementary school, Emma Hutchins Elementary School in Atlanta, Georgia. So he was at the school, and I had painted, that's an image of him as a child, and I had painted it on the wall of the cafeteria in the school. And I put him saying, junk food is whack, or whatever. And he came down, and I was just finishing up the painting, and I didn't even see him come in the room, but he was flipping out. He was just,
Oh my gosh.
wow, oh my, whoa, you painted that, that's amazing. Like, can you come to my barbershop tomorrow in Southwest Atlanta and paint that on the wall in my barbershop? So this is me and him in his barbershop. The day after, I painted the exact same thing in his barbershop. And Killer Mike in Atlanta is like, the Bushes in Kennebunk. Everyone loves him. He's a great guy. He has 2 degrees. He's like world famous rapper and MC. And I just look up to the guy. He's amazing. So it was an amazing day. And yeah, that was just like one of the crazy places that my art had taken me,
That's awesome.
to the hoods
and you
of
got to meet
Atlanta.
a hero who actually turned out to be cool. They always say don't meet your heroes, but in this case it turned out, so that's good.
Yeah, a guy's idol status for sure.
So talk to us about the car.
This is actually an old drag racer for TV Tommy Ivo, who was a champion drag racer back in the 70s or so.
It looks like it would be about a 70s car.
Yeah, they had
That's
me.
quite a car.
I did the gold leaf and sign painting on the sides of the car and back of the car and front, and the actual grille and headlights I painted those. They were just red. So the whole front of that car I painted.
That's neat, because now
With
everything
sign
stands
paint,
out.
not spray paint, with sign paint and brushes. Yeah.
'Cause now everything stands out, because otherwise it would just blend in.
Right,
That's a
right, right.
wild car.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Does it give you a little Dukes of Hazzard feel?
Yeah, we're back to that sort of, edge of danger and
There was some pressure
don't bring this guy
involved.
home to mom,
There was definitely some pressure involved because this was a private collector's car.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it was good to be tested every now and then.
That's a good point. You do. You want to stretch yourself.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular favorite type of medium or the way that you like to present, or is it mood driven?
Mood definitely plays a part in when I'm painting, but usually I really just love spray painting typical graffiti letters and cartoon characters. Those I could do that all day long, but it's fun to I also like being challenged, and clients will sometimes challenge me to do something, and I like that as well, because sometimes they'll paint stuff and think, oh, I would have never painted that in a million years, so I'm kind of glad that they hired me and paid me to paint that, and now I have a picture of this awesome thing I painted that if I had the choice, would never paint.
That's interesting, to be influenced by not just by your muse, but by their needs or inspiration.
And sometimes that, it's that fine line between art as a hobby and art as a profession, because art as a profession, you got to take the commission.
Right.
The commission, puts the food on the table or keeps
Buys
the
the
roof over
paint
the hood, or
and, yep.
whatever. And, the question is not, do I want to? Is it my first preference? But can I? And then the good artist, which, I'm putting you in that category, can find that passion to create that which is other than in their normal. The challenge is finding the challenge.
Yeah.
Right.
And still keeping your aesthetic. I mean, you see that on some of these shows where they say, here's the challenge, you do this, but you have guidelines, and still you want to keep your voice, your vision, in there. It should still be there.
Yeah, it's like when you do those contests, which I don't ever do, or those write-ups that you do sometimes that we've talked about on the show, where there's a certain, like you have to do a story and it's got to have so many words and it's got to have this theme and it's got to do that.
Yeah,
and,
there's certain submission requests for anthologies and things.
yep,
and,
anthologies, that was
Yep.
the word. I knew it was
And-
there somewhere.
and you write to their specifications, because that's going to be the overall theme, but it still needs to be true to your writing style.
Your
you don't want
voice.
to completely, you don't ever want to tap that down entirely.
Yeah, I mean, and I did the same thing. I've done the same thing doing, business writing or writing the science fiction book. Never written science fiction. Do you want to hire me to write your science fiction book?
It's going to sound like,
Yeah,
it's going to be a blend.
but it's still got to be me. So I think that's very interesting.
The Rocky and the photographer was in Hermosillo, Mexico. That's an interesting story to that. I was in.
It's an unusual combination.
Yeah, it's actually part of a room where they just gave me 20 of their favorite things, and I painted them on the wall. It was like a culture painting for each. There was 2 bosses to the company, and they each had their own rooms with their special teams in there. It's like a huge call center. So a lot of them were their passions or what they felt strongly about, or influential things like the movie Rocky, and one of his hobbies was being a photographer. I was painting in the alleyway of, it's now Aura in Portland. It used to be the Asylum. They let me curate the walls because we had been painting murals on their huge wall for a long time now, 21 years. So Anyway, I had a blank canvas, and this businessman walked by and was like, "Oh, you know, I just rolled the wall blank." And he's like, "Oh, another blank canvas." And I was like, "Yeah, another day being creative and doing what I love." And he's like, "Yeah, cool, cool." I painted a huge Scooby-Doo, or you know, for whatever reason.
Scooby-Doo,
yeah. And I had a background and a huge Scooby-Doo, like eating Scooby snacks or something. And he came back out around the corner. He had just went to a meeting for like half an hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And I had that done, and you know, he was amazed. He's like, "Wow, you just painted that? I was only up there for felt like 15 minutes, and holy, that's amazing. And do you want to come down and paint my call center in Mexico?" And I was like, yeah, that'd be great, you know? So I went down there for 7 days and spray painted so much. I think the first day I spray painted 16 hours straight.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Can't say as I've ever written for 16 hours straight.
it was a marathon, but it was worth it. I did so many great things, and it was Mexico, so it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, you know, your work gets discovered so differently than other kinds of art. I mean, literally people walking by and then say, you know, you said it with the rapper, he's like, "Can you come here tomorrow? Can you come here can you do this tomorrow? Can you do this next week?" It's such a different way of being.
I love graffiti, and I love the mystery behind it and the illegality of it and where it is on the street. I have businessmen like that. One day I was in the same alley I'm painting, and I'm getting an art critique from someone, and I'm not paying any mind, and I'm painting, and I hear him say, this guy say, "You know, you should have used blue." And you know, and I looked and I was like, he's right. So I turned around, and it was like a homeless man taking a crap and giving me an art critique. So yeah, I turn around and he's crapping right there in the alley. So, you know, you never know what you're going to see on the street.
That never happens when you're writing in your
That won't happen in a gallery or in an artist talk.
Yeah, I think it might upset a few of the people if it did. But you know, one of the things, so first of all, I think it's fascinating that you have the camera taking the picture out at the people looking at it.
Yeah.
And Rocky's back is turned.
Yeah. Just to the right of that is like Jesus at hugging someone at Heaven's Gate. So there was just a really,
that's a cornucopia of.
I think I had Gandhi and Fenway Park and Underdog flying through a library.
Love it.
Like I said, it's things that I would never paint, but being as a freelance artist, you know, my body of work is full of interesting things that I, you know, would never paint.
We should create an anthology based on, like, you know, one of your murals. Just make people write to this crazy mural of 10,000 different things and see what stories come out of it.
That would be fun.
That would be. It would be wild.
Well, and you know, the fun thing is you could do it both ways, which is you hand him an anthology and he creates the mural, and then you have
put that on the cover, and it's interesting the way the two
play.
Art, and art can. I think I love when art and creativity inspire art and creativity.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, and I think it's rare that it doesn't.
I hope. I hope that's part of the reason you want it everywhere. You know, you want it on buildings, and that you want it in buildings, and you know, and why we want it in our showrooms and in our homes, and because it doesn't just make it look pretty, which is lovely. I mean, don't get me wrong, beauty is important to me, but it also does that little extra. It inspires, whether it's, you know, to make a nicer dinner, to make a more beautiful home, or to write something or create something yourself. It inspires.
Yep. Absolutely. I think that but one of the things you were talking about, Mike, is that slide between Newtonian time and Einstein time. I don't know if you're familiar with those terms or not, but Newtonian time is the time when a minute is a minute. Sometimes a minute feels like an hour, but a minute is a minute, basically. That's how long did it take the apple to drop off the tree. Einstein time is you can do something for 16 hours and feel like 6 minutes has passed, because it's like you step into another reality, and there's a whole ideology of that, the difference of that if that as an artist oftentimes spends more time in Einstein time.
Yeah, that flow where it all exists simultaneously and never ends, and
time kind of because You know, probably if you thought about it, you may have written at some point for 16 hours, because I have.
I guess
But
it's
it's the-
possible. I
but-
mean, I've done, you know, weekend retreats and things like that, and certainly I've gotten into the flow. And you're
But
right,
it-
I may not even realize it.
But it didn't feel like 16 hours. It didn't feel like
That's right.
you had all of this, like, okay, somebody just put my artistic head on crack, and here are my spray paints, and here are all these images,
Right.
and get
Here
out
we
of my
go.
way. And if I'm lucky, I'll remember to hydrate, and I'll grab something if they put it close enough. But don't
Yeah.
ask me to go out the door to go to a restaurant, because I'm like
I'm in the flow.
there.
I am always in Einstein time when I paint.
Yeah.
Every time, you know, an hour, 6 hours, 16 hours could feel like a blink.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
can we go back to the last picture?
Yeah, because we didn't get a chance to look at the last.
The Westbrook.
Yeah, the Westbrook. So talk
yeah.
to us about that.
I'm really proud of that one. Westbrook Arts and Culture had hired myself and Christine Wright, who is my apprentice and partner, to paint this. It's a massive wall. I think it was about 12 feet tall or so by 110 feet long. And
We need to put a little person in the picture.
yeah, I had a picture of me standing there, and I look like a little dot. It's like I literally not even halfway up the letters. But they gave us a list of things that are notable about Westbrook: famous people, landmarks, industry.
They had enough to fill all of that?
Yeah, I know. I was like,
Well, there's also, like, I can see a school
You're right, though.
bus and a few other, you know,
yeah.
Somebody
it's
famous.
a beautiful day in the neighborhood kind of images.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody stopped and used the porta potty in Westbrook, so we captured their image.
That's right. George Washington slept here,
No, I actually learned a lot about Westbrook through this mural and people.
which is
that
cool because
were
that's
from
what you
there.
want the people to see it to also go,
Yeah,
hey, you know,
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
our town's, maybe our town's cool.
So yeah, it took Christine and I 40 hours to do this mural, which is a pretty good time.
I would never have guessed only 40. I would have picked a much bigger number.
And we've had Christine on the show.
We have. You
Yeah.
guys can
An
go back
artist in
to
her
our
own right.
YouTube. If you're seeing this on YouTube, you can kind of scroll through and find her work.
Yeah. So that's great. And you know, it's interesting because I just said this about somewhere where I was driving recently, and but I was like, I wonder what the unique history of this place is. I don't know what made me think of it, but I was like, because you know that every town in New England has, you know,
Something.
150 to 350 years of history and a lot of things. And how does it get remembered? So I think I like that. It's great.
Yeah, it's great to tell more than just one story.
Yep.
And with the letters, you see from far away, it's like, wow, cool font, you know, college letters. So it looks like the throwback postcards.
Yes,
know,
wish
and-
you were here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you walk up to the wall, and it's just a collage of different image, and you can walk down the wall and really, you can say Westbrook history lesson just walking down that wall.
Yeah.
So let's look at that last set of pictures we have. We want you to go over those because we're going to
yeah,
be out of
sorry,
time
one of
pretty
those
soon.
we blew it up. So you know, it was a smaller picture. So when I blew up the images on that bus are a little blurry. Everybody, sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the image quality. Yeah.
What does it say on it? Do you,
It says White Knuckle Customs.
ah,
They do custom metalwork, all types of stuff, from motorcycles to railings on yachts and things
that
like
is
that.
much cooler than the Partridge Family bus.
But there's a image of a woman welding on the back of that bus, and then the bus had those ridges, so it was hard to do that font well. So I was kind of
Yeah.
proud of myself. And the top of the bus has a bomb, and it's lodged into the bus, and that's smoke coming out of it. And then it has shark eyes on the roof and the mouth. Went
Oh
across
yes,
the
I can see
front.
that now in the front.
Yeah.
I can see
And I can
eyes
see
of
the smoke coming up out of the top. Yeah. So talk to us about the Maine Lobster Bake Company.
Yeah, that's a mobile company that does lobster bakes for wedding receptions and any type of events. You know, they'll pull up and they'll boil lobsters. So I have a female and a male lobster in a nice little boiling pot, hot tub, having some cocktails. Just kind of my funny take on what they do. And
And which lighthouse is that?
That would be Portland Headlight.
Portland Headlight. I was going to say, it's not Nubble. I could look at it. I'm going, no, that's not Nubble. So which one is it?
And I have the same image on the other side of the truck, and in the back of the truck I have him, female and male clams, because they also do clams.
Clam bakes.
Yeah, I think she had some kind of retro cat glasses on, and he had like a little goatee or whatever in there.
Well, I wish we could have a picture of the other side of the truck.
You know,
I have so many pictures.
it's
I had
so
to,
great though. I mean, this is, you know, you talk about art in places you don't expect, and so it's one thing when it's there and you can come back to it, and it's another thing when like it goes by.
And you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
wow.
I think I just drove by art.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of how the whole art movement started on the subways in New York.
Yeah,
So,
it is mobile.
yeah.
Well, we want to thank you for coming. Our time comes
Thank
and
you.
goes quick here, as
Yes,
always.
it does.
I was in Einstein time.
Yes, that's right. We hear we film in Einstein. That's true, we do.
So Mike Rich Designs. You obviously underneath, you've seen it, and at the end of the show, you'll see how to look up more of his art and artistry. And you know, we didn't get a chance to really talk about the Dunk the Junk, but you do a lot of stuff with schools, and you're doing a lot of motivational things to help kids and stuff like that. So definitely if you're an educator, if you're somebody who's trying to turn the tide of all of this junk food and things.
Obesity, yeah,
You
childhood
know,
obesity.
I don't know, I'm sure you have examples on your website, if nothing else, of some of the Dunk the Junk stuff you've done.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yay.
So we'll send you there. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And you're located out of Portland, Maine, but you go anywhere.
I go anywhere. Have paint, will travel.
Have paint, will travel. So as we close out today's Dragons, Unicorns, and Other Creative Creatures, you know, art exists everywhere. The first artist was Mother Nature, and you see her producing stuff whether you want it or not. It's that flower coming up through the sidewalk, or it's the tree that decided to grow through the fence and around it. Nothing stops art, nothing stops artists, and today's artist is living proof. Namaste.